Good morning, Jill Winebanks.
Hi there. How are you?
My political mom.
Aw, gosh.
I think the first time I heard you say fat witnesses with my with my flat Buffalo A from being up the transit from Cheektowaga and Tonawanda, I'm like, that girl is...
Oh, my God. I guess I need some grammar training or something.
No.
Oh, my
not
God.
At all.
That Chicago A is just like my Buffalo A, just up the transit, man, from Lackawanna. It's fantastic.
It's a bad day, though.
I know.
Jill, I know. Ay. But, well, I guess we're going to have Iowa results later today. But
And why are people making such a big deal about whether you get the results at 9 p.m.
Yes.
or at 9?
Right.
Well, it's not going to be 9 p.m. this morning, but at noon
Right.
or at 9 p.m. tonight.
Yeah.
It's the results are not in question. There are backup paper ballots. It
Right.
doesn't matter.
It was
whether
not
you
hacked.
get them.
Right.
Exactly. I don't know what the big deal is. It just is not anything to do with. And Donald Trump, of course, said, "I'm the real winner in Iowa."
Yes.
Yeah,
Ay. I just wanted to say hacked so you could say exactly at the same time. So our A's collided. But, yeah, I mean, you made the point on Twitter, Jill. You say Democrats care about character. Republicans obviously don't, but Democrats are the majority, so let's get out the vote. I mean, you're right. We're going to have the results today. And by the way, I made the point, Jill, in 2012, it took the Republicans 2 weeks to figure out the results of their Iowa caucus. So it just, heads down and toward the blue tsunami, right?
Right. And the fact that the criticism is coming from us
Yes.
makes it even worse because it is like a circular firing squad.
Yeah.
We're doing damage to ourselves. And yes, it was a technical glitch. It shows the problems with computers and bad coding.
Yep.
We don't, that's sort of what they're saying now, and we'll know later today exactly what the problem was. But people turned out in nice numbers, and the system worked. The criticism of the caucus itself is an interesting discussion as to whether it serves democracy or not.
Yeah.
It eliminates a lot of people from voting. In
Thank
other
you.
states, you get to vote over many days at times that are convenient for you.
Yeah.
Here, if you have a nighttime job, for example, you can't participate. And that's not fair.
Nope, not at all.
So there are some problems with it as a system, but as someone who I campaigned and I was part of the caucuses for Hillary Clinton in 2008, it's a very fascinating dynamic of watching neighbors convincing neighbors and the dialogue that goes on at these events. So it's sort of like a jury, actually.
You were apparently deciding the leader of the free world based on who has the best pie. Mm-hmm. So it is like the movie In American Pie, except it's our democracy that's getting, and not the pie.
Right.
Jill is right. It is like a jury. If you've ever been in a jury room, you're trying to pull people to your side. You're absolutely right, Jill.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess messy, but it's uniquely American.
That's okay. And actually, it's something that's missing right now in American dialogue. I mean, you don't see discussion between people.
Yeah.
You hear an announced position from one, an announced position from the other, and somehow there isn't that debate going on where you're really listening to other people.
Yeah.
Well, I did one story about a Warren and a Sanders supporter who stopped, for a moment caucusing to dance with each other. Someone said, online progressives take note. I think if you're just online, you think because people are nastier if they're anonymous. If you're in person with that person, they're not going to say the same things that they seem to take license online to say.
Exactly. It's part of the problem with the multiplication of media outlets is that everybody can go into their own little circle and stay there and pay no attention to the facts as put forth by any other point of view. And that's what's missing. Our whole foundation, I hate to get philosophical, but I will, was that in the marketplace of ideas, there would be truth. You would listen to all the varying points of view, and you'd come to a rational decision about what those pieces of information mean and how you weigh them, what's most important to you. But we're not getting a robust amount of information from other points of view because we've now retreated into social media that says what we want to hear.
Yeah. Well, and Jill, you make a great point, as you always do. What a great morning to have you, in that the travesty is not in Iowa. It's in what's happening in the United States Senate. Speaking of jury trials, I mean, this is not a trial. 82% of the American people see that, with no witnesses or documents, and new bombshells coming out daily from Bolton. As you said, the House should subpoena Bolton to get the truth out to the voters immediately. I mean, this is just... It's extraordinary what's about to happen in the United States Senate, isn't it?
It is terrible. And, this Joe Manchin suggestion of censure is really a cop-out, but
yes,
it is better than acquittal. And so I would support that, because acquittal is inevitable. It was inevitable from the first day, even though I had some optimism based on past experience that the GOP would listen to the evidence and would be swayed by reality. It turns out they are really blind and deaf to information and are under some spell from Donald Trump. They are so in fear that they simply will not listen to the facts.
Yeah, let's listen to Joe Manchin and talk on the other side here.
This body was shortchanged, with the majority of my Republican colleagues, led by the majority leader, voting to move forward without relevant witnesses and evidence necessary for a fair trial as our framers intended. History will judge the Senate harshly for failing in its constitutional duty to try this case and do the impartial justice to defend the Constitution and to protect our democracy. Sadly, this is the legacy we leave to our children and grandchildren.
Yeah, the thing though, Jill, is I just feel like Joe Manchin, of course, is is in the state where he feels like, I can't. I do feel like history requires that they vote to convict him. Can't you do both? Why can't you vote to do a censure? Does it have to be censure instead of voting to convict and impeachment?
There's no need for censure if you have voted to convict.
Right.
So that's...
Well, what I'm saying is, why can't that be after the vote to convict? I don't want to have splinter Democrats off that now don't vote for conviction. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I don't think any Democrats, except for possibly Joe Manchin, are going to fall away. During Watergate, the conservative Democrats were as hard a fight as the Republicans, because they were from states that Nixon carried. Well, of course, remember, Nixon carried 49 out of 50 states.
Yeah.
So basically, he carried everywhere. But there were, some Democrats who were definitely in a much more risky position than their counterparts. And so they had to think twice about it, and they all came forward and did the right thing. They followed their conscience, and I think the Republicans have totally lost their conscience.
Yeah.
They don't care anymore. They are going to do whatever it takes. They publicly announced, we're not going to vote for conviction. We're going to acquit. That's the point of this. Let's just get it over with.
Sure.
But how they could say no witnesses is still, even for me, that's hard to swallow, because, first of all, 70% of Americans, which means a good number.
No, 82%. That was last week, was 70.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Now, 82% want witnesses.
Yeah.
That means that the majority of their constituents want it. And I only can hope, my sense of hope for this is that it will make a difference in November, that Republicans will lose the Senate and the presidency. And that requires that the Democrats get a message and get their story out and stop killing themselves by attacking each other.
Well, let's look at the good news and the bad news. The silver lining, certainly Adam Schiff, as everybody is saying, that was really just one for the ages yesterday. His closing speech, I just love the line, is there one among you who will say enough? I mean, it just, it was so powerful. And on the other side, Jill, how terrifying is it for the rule of law that we already have reports he is going to target his political enemies, starting with Bolton, using Bill Barr, and will try to literally imprison John Bolton. Lindsey Graham is going to call the whistleblower after trial and investigate the Bidens. I mean, I don't even know what to call this anymore in terms of fascism. I don't know.
I don't know if it's fascism, authoritarianism, dictatorship.
Right.
It's bad. It's definitely anti-democracy. And when our Justice Department is going after specific people, that goes back to the era of Nixon, too. The enemies list, using the IRS to do audits and threaten the enemies. The enemies were, by the way, reporters who reported the truth. That was and political candidates. It's a really serious threat to democracy, and people need to take it seriously. Getting out the vote in November is the answer.
Yeah.
We are the majority. It's just that a lot of people sat home, and now there's this. This takes us back to Iowa, where people are saying, "Well, my vote doesn't count." Yes, your vote does count. Every vote in Iowa will be counted. It's just a delay. So what?
Yeah.
Big deal. That does not threaten outcome in the way that.
Thank you. And TV
Trump
coverage.
does.
Yeah, TV coverage kind of amplifies it, doesn't it? Where are the results? Where are the results? And first of all, Iowa is rarely determinative of who the nominee is anyway. It's just we're just starting, and you're right. People, I think, are so scared that, we're starting to panic, and it's just everybody calm down, right?
Well, it actually, Iowa is predictive for reasons that make no sense.
Well, yeah.
Totally not.
But momentum and all, right.
It does, in the past 4 elections, I think, the winner of Iowa became the nominee.
Yes.
Not necessarily predictive of who will win the general election,
right,
but of who will win. And is that right? I mean, Iowa is not a representative state.
See, John Kerry was dead last in Iowa, though. I mean, Howard Dean was...
Since 2000, I think.
Since 2000. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well...
So it can be predictive, but what I'm saying is it's not predictive if you find out the results tomorrow instead of yesterday.
Yeah.
It does not matter. And for us to get all in a lather about it makes no sense. And you're right, the press has definitely, and it's in part because they were set to report the results and they had nothing to say because there were no results. So they made a big deal of it. And then Donald Trump, of course, made a big deal of it as well.
Yeah. You know what's a big deal? Well, Chicago, is really nice because you're there. But you know when it's really nice? I hear like in July, right before the DNC. And it's especially nice when you and Jan Schakowsky are together with all the sexy liberals. And so...
You are terrible at keeping secrets, Stephanie.
Not
so when is it? Do you have a date?
Uh-huh.
Oh, what's the date?
She says, I can't tell you.
Maybe just before some Democratic convention.
Is there something going on
that's
in July?
Good.
Yeah.
I'll text you right after this.
There, but for different candidates.
I will text you, and you will text me a winking yes corgi back, like you do to Travis.
I will do that. I will do that. A smiling one.
Yes.
All right. Love you, Jill.
Sure. Thank you very
Watergate
much.
Girl. Get it. I'm reading it on the plane to the first sexy liberal.
Yes.
Watergate Girl. I can't wait.
Yay. Go girl. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Jill.
See ya. Bye.
I love her.